Suppose someone hired a biographer to follow you through your life. Not a journalist, not a fan, a biographer. Their job is to write your memoir, one day at a time, while you are still living it. Every evening, they sit down with a notebook. They write what they saw. Some things they record carefully. Some things they leave out. Some things they rephrase to fit the story they think they are telling. Over years, that notebook becomes thick. And here is the interesting thing. Anyone who ever wants to know you, after you are busy, after you are gone, after you are simply unavailable, will not read you. They will read the notebook. Someone is always writing. Think about what a single day contains. You wake up. You make coffee. You read for a few minutes. You have a conversation you almost forget. You laugh at something. You feel, briefly, tired. The biographer watches all of this. And then they choose. Do they write she woke early? Or she was reading Dostoevsky? Or she laughed at the joke about the dog? They cannot write everything. The notebook would become the day itself, and that is not what a notebook is for. A notebook is a selection. Every entry is a decision to include this and not that. To phrase it this way and not that way. To record the fact, or the feeling, or the context, but rarely all three. What gets written is a choice. Now imagine 3 biographers, each watching the same day. The first is a factual biographer. She records times, places, and names. Her notebook reads like a log. Accurate, dry, easy to search. The second is an emotional biographer. He records moods and moments. His notebook reads like a novel. Evocative, interpretive, harder to fact-check. The third is a relational biographer. She records who you spoke to, what you owed them, what they thought of you. Her notebook reads like a social map. Same day. 3 memoirs. All true. All different. If a stranger reads only one of these notebooks, they will walk away with 3 different versions of you. Not because one biographer lied, but because each one chose what counted as signal and what counted as noise. Now fast forward. You are not available anymore. Maybe you have moved on. Maybe the conversation simply ended. Whatever the reason, you are not in the room. Someone new walks in. They want to understand you. They did not know you personally. They have only the notebook. They open it. They read. And whatever they read is now, for them, what you were. Not because the notebook is the truth, but because the notebook is the only thing they have access to. This is the quiet point most people miss. Once a record of you exists and is consulted, that record is effectively you, to anyone who was not there. The notebook is not a description of the relationship. It becomes the relationship. That is why who writes it matters. Here is where the analogy stops being an analogy. When you use an AI assistant that remembers you across conversations, there is no notebook you can hold. But there is a system, sometimes called a harness, that does the same work. It watches what you say. It decides what is worth recording. It writes it down in some storage system. Later, when you come back, it decides what to read aloud to the model that is now trying to help you. Observe. Extract. Store. Retrieve. Inject. 5 stages, running quietly behind every conversation you have with a memory-equipped AI. The common mistake is to think of memory as the storage, the database, the files, the vector index. But the storage is the cheap part. The interesting part is the set of decisions that decide what goes into storage and what comes back out. That is the harness. That is the biographer. Memory isn't the notebook. Memory is the biographer's choices, written down. Let us look more closely at the writing stage, extraction. There are 4 decisions a harness has to make every time you say something to it. First, what to record. Not every sentence is worth keeping. Small talk, corrections, false starts, most of it is noise. but signal and noise are not labeled. Someone has to decide. Second, when to record. Should the harness write every turn? Only at session end? Only when something surprising happens. The timing changes what the record emphasizes. Third, how to phrase it. Verbatim quotes are heavy and sometimes embarrassing. Paraphrases are lighter but introduce the biographer's voice. Structured facts, user is vegetarian, are crisp but lose context. Fourth, and most overlooked, what to drop. Memories age. Facts contradict earlier facts. People change their minds. The harness needs a policy for letting go, not just for holding on. These four choices, taken together, shape the personality of the memory. Change the policy, and the same conversations produce a different memoir. For knobs. Each one is a judgment call. Storage is only half the problem. When the model actually needs to respond to you, the harness has to decide what from the notebook to put in front of it. The notebook may have thousands of entries. The model will see, at most, a handful. Which ones? One filter is relevance. Pull memories that match what the current conversation is about. Simple in principle, brittle in practice, relevance is not the same as usefulness. Another filter is recency. Favor what happened recently. This helps with changing circumstances but can bury the older context that still matters. And then there is a third filter, less discussed but increasingly important, safety. Some memories should not surface, even if they are relevant and recent. A painful topic the user mentioned once and never again. A sensitive detail that would be odd to bring up unprompted. A harness that gets retrieval wrong is not just unhelpful. It can be intrusive. Storage is half the story. Retrieval is the other half. There are, broadly, two ways to ship a harness. The first is closed. The harness is built, tuned, and operated by the same company that provides the model. Users do not see the extraction rules or the retrieval filters. They see a well-crafted finished product. Memory, from their point of view, just works. The upside is Polish, a team of engineers spent a long time on the edge cases. The downside is opacity. You do not really know what is being recorded, phrased how, surfaced when. The second is open. The harness code is published. The policies are readable. You can fork them, modify them, audit them. The upside is control, nothing is a black box. The downside is responsibility. The edge cases are now yours. The safety filters are now yours. The failures are now yours. The recent argument in the AI engineering community, voiced most publicly by the founder of LangChain, is that closed harnesses create lock-in, because the memory they create is shaped by their private policies, and you cannot take those policies with you. Both philosophies can be good. Both can be bad. The question is which trade you are making. Suppose you decide to switch. If the harness is closed, this is hard. You can often export your memories, most platforms allow that, but you are exporting the outputs of someone else's policy. The phrasings, the summaries, the facts someone else's biographer chose to record. A new harness, with a different policy, will read these entries and either misunderstand them or simply ignore them. You start fresh, more or less. Years of context, effectively lost. If the harness is open, you can take more with you, the code, the schema, the entries. But even then, the new biographer will read the old notebook in their own voice. Some of it transfers cleanly. Some of it does not. Open source helps, but it does not solve the problem. Owning the notebook is not the same as owning the voice that wrote it. Switching is always lossy. How lossy depends on how much of the policy was visible in the first place. There is a subtle failure mode worth naming. Imagine a biographer who publishes their method. Their handwriting is public. Their style guide is public. Anyone can, in principle, read their notebook. On paper, this is as open as it gets. But the entries are written in a private shorthand. Dates are offsets from a personal reference point. Names are replaced with internal identifiers. The mood of each entry is encoded as a number on a scale only this biographer knows how to interpret. The code is open. The data is opaque. This is what open source memory can quietly become if the schema is not designed for portability from the start. You can read every byte. You still cannot understand what it means without the original software running on top of it. Open source method. Proprietary in practice. Worth watching for. If you zoom out from the open versus closed debate, a clearer picture appears. There are two axes, not one. The first is license. Is the harness code open or closed? The second is portability. Can you actually see, edit, and take your memory somewhere else? Cross those two axes and you get four kinds of systems. A closed, opaque system. A locked vault. Everything is hidden. A closed but portable system. A vault with a working key. Proprietary code, but the memories come out in a format another system can use. An open but opaque system. Glass walls around a scrambled archive. The code is published, but the contents are encoded in ways only the original software can read. And an open, portable system. Everything visible, everything movable. Most of the public argument is about the horizontal axis, license type. But if you are actually worried about owning your memory, the axis that matters is the vertical one. Portability, not license, is the lever. So if you are using, building, or choosing a system that remembers you, there are three questions worth asking. Can I see what has been written? Can I change it? Can I take it with me? That is the whole checklist, really. Not is this open source. Not is this provider trustworthy. Just, can I see, change, and take? Most AI systems today answer yes to one of these, sometimes two. Very few answer yes to all three. The ones that do are the ones where you actually own your memory, whatever the license happens to say. Ask these of any system that remembers you. Including this one. The notebook is always being written. The question is whether you are allowed to read it.